Hi, my name is Neek Shay Brand. I am a graduate student at TAMU. I'm in the Educational Leadership Program, and today's video is Learning and Teaching with a focus on equity. So when I first looked at this chapter's title from Breakthrough Principles and it said learning and teaching, I was like, oh, so that's a little bit different from what I understand. Because in my district, we have a department at the district level that is called teaching and learning. And I know at the heart of what they do, it is teaching teachers to help students learn. That's pretty much it. They give instructional strategies, a whole bunch of professional developments that kind of assist teachers with ensuring that students are learning. So involving discourse, involving movement, involving learning from mistakes, like the whole gambit. But then when I looked at this title and I said learning and teaching, I really wonder why learning is first and not teaching. And then I thought about a lot of the things that I've learned from this book. And at the heart of it, it is learning, helping students to learn. But even more so with that, it's that backwards design. Like, where do you want the students to go? What is it that we want the students to learn? Why is it that we want the students to learn that? And then figuring out what's the best route. How do we teach them to get to that point? So that was like my big aha, like the light bulb just came on, and I absolutely loved it. So, in this chapter, they talk about four key levers. One is align the curriculum, two, classroom practices and routines or instruction, three is data, and then four is student-centered differentiation. Now, when I think about how the standards, human capital, and executive leadership or executive leader kind of ties into these, well, it's kind of interwoven throughout all of it. When I think of human capital, it starts with choosing those people, the staff, and that can be from teachers to even custodians and cafeteria workers who has a heart for students. And I know sometimes that could probably be a tedious thing or a challenging thing, but I think it's worth actually looking for because you want those who have a passion and a heart to help students, but then also for them to also grow so that it's a process where we're all growing together. So ensuring that you have the right people, so to say, on the train, because it's definitely going to move. And then, as being the executive leader, you're there to support them, and you're in it with them. You're growing with them. You're learning with them. Because even as the executive leader, it doesn't mean that you know everything. Yes, you are the instructional leader, but you're in it with them, learning the best practices, practicing the best practices to ensure that everybody has the one goal in mind, which is student achievement. So let's talk a little bit about the aligned curriculum. Ensuring that curriculum is aligned is of the utmost importance. When I think about the standards and I'm going to say, for example, eighth grade social studies, it's very important that we look at the level of rigor that each standard asks for. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to stay at that level of rigor. We can go above and beyond, but at minimum, here is where students need to be. So I think it's very important that we take the standard and we break it down, which is a part of the backwards design, to know here is what is being asked of the students, and here's what they need to be able to understand or analyze or identify or explain or know. And then you can move into scope and sequence, placing things in the order that it needs to be placed so that, and given the right time, so that students have what they need in order to be successful. Then you also talk about unit studies, which are a lot bigger. So when you think about unit studies help teachers take the standards and place them in, well, the scope and sequence helps them do that, but the unit standards come is built based on the scope and sequence. So it's a larger portion that has assessments built in, different activities built in, and it's a time now to reflect, to say, so here's what we want them to learn, and these are the activities that we're going to use to help them get there. So it is the teaching part. You also have an opportunity to discuss if how long lectures will be, what modes of instruction will we use, videos, political cartoons, image analysis, graphic organizers, a gambit of different things that can help the students access the actual content. Now, when I think about the case study for the Matthews and Knight, I kind of thought about how Miss Martin, I think her name was, or Miss Martinez. I think about how when her principal talked to her about, I'm sorry, not her principal, when her superintendent, assistant superintendent talked to her about having high quality instruction and how that should just be her focus. I thought, absolutely. That is, of course, going to be her focus, but that does not negate the fact that she has to ensure that those students who need special education is receiving it and that they're getting it at the proper time or when the request should be done. And that goes back to stage one. It sounds like for professional development, when she did the study or survey and she found out many of her teachers didn't understand the RTI process. Many of her teachers didn't know how to properly refer students to special education. And so to me, that screamed level one. It didn't mean zero because some had an idea or had a knowledge of, but just they weren't very confident. So having the professional development for that would have been is going to be really, really great. But I think also coupling it with what are those high quality instructional strategies that I have seen in the classroom? And when I went through the case study, I didn't see where she had collected data in the classroom to see, so what are my teachers doing for students who are struggling? What strategies are my teachers using for those students who need some more assistance with being successful with the content? I think if she'd done that and then she can couple that with it won't be the same PD, but it could be kind of like a side by side where first, let's talk about some instructional strategies that would work really, really well for struggling students and ELL learners. And then let's talk about the process of how to refer someone, and then making sure that the assistant principals are all on board and understand how I need you in the classrooms to see and assist the teachers with instructional strategies that would support them. I think would have been and will be a great benefit to her. Now, think when I think more about the data portion of it, well, it all ties really well into the standards for, of course, human capital, but even more so for the executive leader. As the executive leader, you have to make sure that you lead the charge in data analysis and data-driven decisions. Teachers are going to be very, I'll say, not necessarily energetic, but they will be, I won't even say bought in, but I think that they'll have an understanding of why it is important to use the data in order to decide how something needs to be taught. Think the best way is to look at your outcome and then look at how you taught it and then look at did the outcome actually happen? What was the goal actually reached? And if not, then you can go back and say, so these aspects of it need to be changed. But the data is just not about like the numbers on actual assessments. There are many different other data pieces that can feed into the performance of students. You have attendance, you've got behavioral referrals, you also have some students who are socially, they just need support. So there are many different things that can tie into data, especially if a teacher knows, I know this baby has done really, really well with this. And then when they got to the test, this is what they did. And then having one-on-one conferences with students as well will help give a better picture of the performance and then looking at the tracking of those students, not just the teacher tracking it, but also the students tracking themselves. Lastly, student-centered differentiation. And I think that's what this is all about, and even tying it back into denying the special education students what they need. If teachers are not strong in how do I make this look different for this student and how can I ensure that this student learns this and that this student learns it, but they're all on different levels. If a teacher is not strong in that, then it is the executive leaders, it's their power. It's what they need to do, which is to better support them. Could that look like professional development? Could that look like going and